Good evening, everybody. Today is Tuesday, September 13th, and we are going to begin this evening's school committee meeting. I'd like to call the meeting to order. This meeting is being video and audio recorded for future cable broadcast. Please silence all cell phones for the duration of the meeting. Our member, Sarah Gomes, will be attending this evening but running late. And we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, the first item on our agenda is the approval of minutes, payroll, and warrants. So if I could request a motion of approval, please.
Madam Chair, could I have a motion to start the meeting? I'm sorry.
Oh, I thought we did that already. I need a motion to start our meeting, please.
So moved. Second.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to move into the first item of our agenda, approval of minutes, payroll, and warrants. If I could request a motion of approval, please, for the payroll and warrants.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion on those? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Do we have anyone signed up for delegation this evening?
No delegation.
Thank you. And we have no business. We'll move right into new business, and I'll hand it over to you, Dr. Bailey, for our superintendent's report.
Thank you. So the first thing I have is our personnel report. You see that 5 new staff members have been added since our last meeting, 1 resignation and 1 transfer. Does anybody have any questions?
Questions here? Any questions? Nope.
And this is more informational, but we have a position right now, a .5 building secretary that's split between the 2 buildings, and we have really found the need. We have a great need in the district, not only at the building level, but at the district level, but right now we're focusing on the building level for administrative assistance. We're able to bring this up to a 1.0 for this year only with grant funds. We did ask permission of DESE to see if it was allowed, and it is allowable under the grant, so we'd like to keep an existing position just for this year to see how it goes, and we're going to talk further about this at our budget subcommittee meeting, but I did want to let the full committee know that the .5, we want to move that to a 1.0 for this year, and we're able to do that.
Okay. Any questions?
No, just for clarification, that's a half of an FTE to a full?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. The next thing is, you know, on these personnel reports, I list our new staff. And we've had, you know, new staff because of retirements, etc. And I've invited them this year so that you can put a face with the name. We had a really nice day-long orientation with our new staff, and they were able to have a tour of our buildings, meet the administration team, and actually take a tour of the town. And we hadn't done that before, and I think it was pretty well received. So without me just reading the names, I think I'd love to ask the new staff members to just go up to the podium. I would ask that they state their name and their role, and if they want to state anything else about, you know, they're welcome to make a few comments. So if you want to make your way over to the podium, any new staff members who are with us today, I would really love to hear from you.
Hello everyone.
Hello.
I'm Matt St. Jean. I teach phys ed here at Ford Middle School. I was hired in the middle of last year in January. Miss Reedy retired, and the school welcomed me with open arms. So I already feel like I'm at home here, and I'm loving the district. I'm very passionate about teaching. It's my 10th year this year. I taught 8 years in New Bedford, and the administration here just really allows me to show my passion and personality, and I really appreciate them for that, and I'm excited to see what the future brings here.
Great.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Hi, my name is Teal Cederberg. I teach 4th grade here at Acushnet Elementary School. This is my 8th year teaching, and I've taught in Rehoboth, I've taught in New Bedford, and most recently in Westport. I came to Acushnet because I could feel just exactly how much their administrators supported their staff, and I'm really excited to be here. I'm really excited to get to know the community, and it's been great so far, so thank you.
Welcome, thank you.
Hi, I'm Diane Ash. I'm a transplant from New Jersey. Came up right before COVID. I taught for close to 30 years in New Jersey and Pennsylvania, about the last 10 being in the library in a K-12 school of about 500 kids. And so yeah, my husband's job brought us up here, and I came here as a para, and when I heard talk of the library getting a new lease on life, I wanted to kind of jump in and see if that would work out for me, and it did. So I'm really happy to be there and try and give that a fresh start with the old and the new combined. So thank you very much.
Thank you, welcome.
Hi, my name is Tammy Jarrett. And I'm the 7-8 English teacher here at Ford. I taught this is my 12th year of teaching English at the middle school level. I taught in Walpole. My husband and I recently moved to Carver, and Walpole was a bit of a distance, and I was lucky enough to find a job in Acushnet, and it's gone well, and the kids are great, and the administration is great, and I'm just happy to be here.
Great, welcome.
Hi, I'm Tim Frechette. I'm the 7th and 8th grade math teacher at the Ford Middle School. This is my first year teaching. I graduated from Endicott College in 2021 with my bachelor's, and this past year with my master's. And I'm from Somerset, so this is a very local school for me, and just everything thus far has been just such a great feeling, and I truly feel like I'm in the right spot to start my teaching journey, and I'm really thrilled to get to know the Acushnet community very much. So thank you so much for this opportunity, and I'm really looking forward to sharing my love for math with all the students and everybody.
Great, thank you, welcome.
Hi everyone, Patrick McIntyre. I'm the new school business manager here. I started at the end of August, and it's been great ever since. Echo what everyone else has said. It just feels like home here in Acushnet, and I'm excited to be here. I'll have a little bit more for you later in this meeting, and I look forward to the school year. So thank you.
Welcome, thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Patrick Missler. I'm the new director of tech. I came here for a few reasons: phenomenal staff and students, and also the creamery is awesome. We got to experience that on the admin trip. We have a ton of stuff to tell you guys later in the night, so I don't want to bore you, but thank you for having me. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, welcome.
And we have one more
Okay.
special guest with us.
Yes.
I have a second, but I'm Derek Cathcart, the school resource officer. I am not new. This is my 8th school year, my 20th year with the police department, but I'm not here for me. I'm here for Sunny, the standard poodle that was gifted to the police department over the summer, to be a community animal, community resource animal. So we're training right now to be a comfort dog. She's 19 weeks old. She's pretty much a joy to be around. I think she's fit right in. She's great with the kids and the adults as well. So I'll probably have to bring her up for you to see.
Yeah, because Sunny can't be seen on the camera. Can we bring her around the front? She's so cute.
But Sunny's already helped kids adjust to fire drills, to different
There's
situations,
Sunny.
adjusting to school. And she's just been a nice addition to our school community.
It's great, how great.
She's very well behaved.
Yes, she seems like such a good girl.
Welcome to Sunny.
Yeah. Oh, she's wants to.
She might fall asleep.
Well, she's a
Like she did
calming
recently in
dog,
my
so.
office.
Great, thank you.
Thank you so much, Officer Cathcart.
Thank you for adding this to the agenda. I think it's really helpful we hear names of teachers all the time, and then of course I have one child in the district and I hear names, but it's really nice to put faces to those names. So I appreciated this on the agenda today.
It's really important. So, and I really appreciate their time as well, coming back
Yes.
here for this meeting. I thought it was super nice.
Yep.
Appreciate their time. The next thing I'd like to review is an updated job description. This is a very quick one. As you know, we had a data analyst in the district, and we, after talking to our new tech director, it's really not an analyst. The person doesn't analyze data, right? So we changed the title. We took out just a couple of admin assistant responsibilities and really just made it more accurate. So you see the new one says data coordinator, and just because it is new and updated, I would ask the committee for a vote to accept this new job description so that we can move on it.
Are there any questions about the data analyst position description?
Just for clarity, this is a job we already had.
Yeah, it's a job we already had.
Just making it
Someone
more
retired.
accurate, right?
Yep, the person who was in the position retired, and we just wanted to get it right in terms of the position itself.
Mhm.
We want to, we're looking for someone experienced to come in and help us with our information system. So that's where we're at with that, and I just needed to run it by our new tech director so that it was the most accurate it could be.
All right, so if I could request a motion, please, of approval for the data analyst job description? Or, I'm sorry, why am I looking at data
There's
analyst
another
then?
So that was the old one?
I just wanted to show you the
Oh,
old
okay,
one.
okay. Sorry about that.
That's
So
okay.
it's the data coordinator job description that we're approving the language for.
So move.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. I'm just going to take something out of order, if you don't mind, Madam Chair.
Sure.
The school physician agreement, we have a physician who oversees the district, it's Dr. Trivedi, and every year we enter into an agreement with her. I would just need a vote to enter into another agreement with her, and then I would pass around the agreement for signature. But this has been vetted through our legal counsel. It's just something very similar.
And
what
it's
we've done
included in the
past.
packets as well.
So I'm just going to pass it around for signature, but we do need a vote,
Okay.
okay?
So if I could request a motion of approval, please, for the school physician agreement, which was included in the packet.
One question on that, though. The termination of the agreement is June 30th, 2023. There's no need for a school physician during the summer programs or anything like that?
That's a good question. I know that honestly, we consult with her throughout the year. I don't know if the last year's, I don't have it in front of me, ran through the summer or not. Did it start in July?
July 1, 2022.
Right.
Okay.
So the new one will start in July.
Fair.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Dr. Bailey, were there any other significant changes to the
No,
contract?
nope.
So may I request a motion of approval, please, for the school physician agreement for 2022-2023?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Thank you. And then the special education services, student services contracts. So usually the superintendent signs off on many contracts that we enter into agreement with vendors that come in. But in this case, the special ed person or the director of student services in our district's case, she's really the one who knows the best in terms of what she's signing for, what she's looking for. And I've been advised just to get a vote from the school committee that she has the authority. Obviously, she vets everything out through my office anyway, and I get copies of everything, but I just need you to vote that she has the authority to sign off on these types of contracts. And they're nothing major. It could be for an ABA, it could be for a special counselor, it could be for an evaluation, having to do with special education services. But basically, I would, want to give her the authority, because she specializes in those matters, to sign off on these contracts. And I've been advised by legal that we should just get a vote.
Okay. So if I could request a motion, please, to offer authority to the Director of Student Services to have signing authority over important contracts.
That pertain to her department. Yep.
Also move. I'll second.
Any further discussion?
I just had a question. Is that in addition to other legal documents like IEPs, things like that?
Yes, it's not just IEPs, like she does sign off on IEPs as the director, but
Sure.
it could be contracts where a student needs a particular service and she knows exactly what she's looking for that service. It could be nursing services, those types of things, the student services.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I had one, I was pondering a question before I seconded the motion. Is there a threshold on that in terms of like, can approve up to a certain value, or?
I will tell you that she runs everything by me now. But when I was in a conversation with our legal counsel, he just said, you know, that's actually a good point. The school committee should just formalize it because technically the superintendent signs off on contracts, right? But since I've been in the district, I've required all the contracts to come to my office so that we have, you know, knowledge of all of our vendors and contracts. And he just said this was a wise thing to do. But yeah, I don't see anyone in the district, whether it's a technology director or a director of student services, signing off on major contracts without superintendent being involved.
Sure.
Yeah.
And it's only, as you pointed out, related to student services.
Correct.
So they wouldn't be signing a contract related to technology or...
Right, correct.
Right. So we have a motion on the floor and a second. Any further discussion or questions? Okay, all those in favor? Aye.
Thank
I'll
you.
abstain.
I'm going to abstain as well, thank you.
Okay, so we have
Okay.
3
Still have 3, right?
yes and 2 abstain.
Okay. All set? All right.
And for the record, Mrs. Gomes entered at 5:46. Thank you.
So the next thing on the agenda is our technology audit. And just to give you all some background and as a reminder, a while back during COVID, as you know, we had a cyber attack on the district, and the district was down for more than a week. And it was very frustrating for students, for families, for teachers. We had students at home who couldn't get on. And, you know, we could not get it back up.
I recall.
Yep. At that time, I contacted the Commissioner of Education, and he
Yes, I remember.
actually gave us some high-level folks to help us. And, you know, working collaboratively with people, we were able to get within 24 hours, back up and running fairly quickly after that. But I never want the district to be in that situation again. And it just prompted me to want to see what are the district's strengths as far as technology, what are the district's opportunities for growth. So it prompted us to do an audit. We had Northeastern Technologies come in, and it didn't go, not with them, it went fine with them, but it just didn't go so well managing the audit. So we decided to go with another company, and again, not because of Northeast Technology, they were great, but we have a third party, Thrive is the company that we went with to conduct the audit of the district. And you will hear things tonight, but I always look at things, areas of growth, as an opportunity for the district to move forward. I just think these situations are important for the district to know where we stand, because again, technology is constantly changing, and we always want to be at our best. Okay, we want best practices, we want to be at our best. And this is not my wheelhouse per se, I don't have that deep level knowledge to know. So by hiring this company called Thrive, they were able to investigate our district's technology and provide us with a very, very thorough report, which you have a copy of in your packets. So to introduce...
One quick question, Dr. Bailey,
Yes.
before we get into the results of the audit. Prior to this audit, when was our last technology audit for the district done?
I don't think we've ever had one, that to my knowledge. I don't think we've ever had an audit.
Okay, so this was, regardless of the breakdown that we had with our system during the pandemic, this was sort of something that was due.
This was
right?
important to do. When I came on, we had, if you recall, we had a curriculum audit. Okay?
Yep. Yep.
Audits are very important to do because it lets us, it gives us information so that we can see where we're at and then we can plan and move forward. So I believe in audits. This is nothing personal to anyone, but this is where we stand. And to introduce Thrive, I'd ask Patrick Missler, our new tech director, who we're so grateful to have on board, to let us know about the audit and to make introduction. So thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, school committee. Before I introduce Thrive, we did a fantastic job. We worked hand in hand throughout this whole process. I just want to thank Superintendent Bailey. I find audits are really helpful. They do showcase a lot of issues, but it also showcases things that have slipped through the cracks over all these years. And you just hit case in point. When was the last time this happened? And if it hasn't happened in a district, it now gives us a roadmap to success. And that's what these guys have done for us. So without further ado, this is Thrive. This is David Sampson. His father worked as a superintendent. I'm not trying to blow up your spot, but he's been in education for quite some time and phenomenal work with. So please.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Patrick, and good evening, Madam Chairman, members of the committee. Dr. Bailey, thanks so much for giving me this opportunity. Just a little bit, so Thrive, we're actually about a 1,100 person global organization these days. We started in Massachusetts, up north of Boston, with less than 100 people. Over the last 5 or 6 years, we have expanded our operations from Portland, Maine to Miami, to Birmingham, the UK, Hong Kong. We're a rapidly growing technology company, so I'm just one of many, but we're very excited to be here this evening. So I run the consulting division at Thrive. That means that our division, we are a team of independent trusted advisors. Our job is not to be salespeople. Our job is not service delivery. We work with customers on strategy, specifically around technology and specifically around cybersecurity. I've done a lot of things, and I put a few of those things in this slide that's actually not in your packet, but a lot of technology startup work, high availability, data hosting work, compliant and regulated data hosting work. But as Patrick mentioned, somewhere around 25 years ago, my start in technology was in public schools, and that is because my father was a school superintendent for a very long time, and that was towards the end of his career was around the time that I was in college getting started with technology. So I've continued to work with a variety of public school districts. I have a lot of familiarity with how public school districts work, what needs are required for successful implementation, utilization of technology in school districts, and frankly, it's an area where I like to work, so I'm very excited to have had the opportunity to work with the Acushnet district. I'm also excited to be able to present these findings to you directly, and kind of speaking to the validity and need for an audit. It's very important for folks at the executive level, whether it be school superintendents, someone in Dr. Bailey's position, or yourselves, to really have good understanding, validation, and evidence that things do exist as we believe that they do, right? And that's really what we do through the audit process. So I want to tell you just a little bit about how we approach that. I'm not going to go through the entire presentation that you have in your packets tonight because it would probably take us about 90 minutes, and I'm unsure that you want to hear me talk about that much technology for that long. One of the other items on my resume, which hasn't been mentioned, is I just recently finished serving as selectman in town of Sandwich, where I lived for 6 years. So to that end, I thank you for your service as school committee members, but I also want to make sure that I give you the right level of information.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
So our approach to assessments and audits with customers. Basically, when it comes to technology, and especially when we look at IT governance, cybersecurity requirements, we look at 2 baseline frameworks, right? So we want to make sure that we are checking a variety of items that meet best practices in a series of boxes and control areas. There's a variety of standard frameworks that exist. The particular framework that we use as our standard is this one here on the screen. It shows 18 different areas, control areas, that apply to different areas of high availability, redundancy, cybersecurity. It's a very standard framework. You can find it in a variety of places. But the way that we actually go through and do our findings is we work very hard to collaborate with the important stakeholders that are involved in the organization. So we do that via conducting scans in the environment. We have software that will go out and look for assets that are attached. We look to collect any documentation that exists. We interview key personnel, so both from a technical as well as from a business perspective or school administration perspective, and then we actually go and open the hood on everything. What systems exist? Are they implemented properly? Are they implemented in accordance with best practices? Are they being maintained? Are they being updated? Are they keeping with the times from a technology perspective? And that's how we come to all of our conclusions. So from the perspective of the audit that we conduct, the assessment that we conduct, it's 100% evidence-based. We are not going to represent anything to you that we can't produce evidence for. That's basically how this works. There's a few different types of audits that exist out there. Sometimes they're completely conversational. Sometimes they are one just based on a tool. We actually do both because it delivers the best results for our customers. With that, I also want to add, if you have any questions for me whatsoever throughout this presentation, I'm very happy to pause. I'm very happy to answer your questions. I'm very happy to address any concerns that you may have this evening.
One quick question before you
course.
dive in, and you may have said this, and if I missed it, I apologize, but you're rating this based on, your ratings in all of these various categories are based obviously on best practices in public school districts, I'm assuming.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. And has everybody had a chance to look through this packet previously? Okay. So I will kind of go through the high-level items. There was a lot of technical detail in here. If you went through the entire packet, which you may have done, you'll see that we have found a lot of faults in the district. During current times, we are doing more assessments than ever, and the push around cybersecurity is a very big driver for that. The risk from cybersecurity is very great to every organization. So folks may think we are too small to be victimized by a cyber attack, by a ransomware attack. Folks aren't going to come looking for us because they think that we don't have the resources to pay them. The reality is the way that cyber attacks work is that folks that are conducting those attacks go out, they run tools on the internet, they go look for doors that are open. When they find those open doors, they put their locks on them and send you the message, please pay us. So everybody is equally vulnerable to these attacks. And the tools that we look at here inside these control areas really involve securing the network appropriately, implementing the right technology to protect the network and to protect the users sometimes from themselves. So things like email filtering, password policies, data backups, network infrastructure implementation like firewalls. All these things are really mission critical. Now, I understand you might be concerned or questioning the fact that the findings in this particular assessment are particularly poor. We do see this not on a somewhat regular basis, more often. Most of the folks fall in the middle, to be honest with you. Very few folks fall in line with best practices, and then there's also outliers that are more on the poor side of things. And really just to kind of attack it head on, our general findings as it applies to the Acushnet Public School District is that there really has not been a implementation of standards across the board with the technology between the two school buildings. The approach to the implementation of technology here has been very reactive. And with that, our discovery process identified that the majority of systems that are deployed in the district were not deployed in accordance with best practices or were not fully deployed. So really, as we look at what a best practices matrix perspective for cybersecurity or IT, we really want to be establishing a platform. We want to establish repeatable processes, and we want to maintain a proactive approach to maintain systems availability so that the systems are always on, the systems work predictably. We know that the Wi-Fi is going to work. We know that the internet is going to work. We know that our smart device on the wall, whether it be a projector or a Promethean board, that all those things will work in a predictable manner. And our findings are observations. We've talked to a lot of school districts, especially in the school environment. It's really mission critical because when technology is such an integral part of our learning process and teachers are dependent on that process to do their jobs, as well as our students to learn, when that technology fails, it really interrupts lesson plans and other things, right? It all just snowballs from there. So when the technology fails, when it's time to use it for a class period, that creates a very unexpected problem. So from that perspective, I just want to shed some light maybe on some specific areas. You may have looked through these matrices here just to highlight some things about areas of concern, areas of risk. Very outdated operating systems are being used here for some of your servers. Operating systems that no longer receive updates from Microsoft.
So that's a area of concern, because if we can't get the latest updates, that makes us more susceptible to cyber attacks. Account management, identity management. So basically the ability to create a user account for some user, whether they be a student or a staff member, have those credentials be secure. So I think everybody's probably familiar with strong passwords. I also know that the majority of people hate them, or multi-factor authentication, right? The important message there is that passwords are designed to keep things secure, so they're not always supposed to be convenient. But we found no password policy here in the district. So there was actually no policy on the network that required a user to even establish a password. They could have a blank password. Now, while we've been working through the audit process and working with Patrick, who has been a very good partner in that process, there has been progress made since we've made all of our initial findings. So some items are being addressed and being fixed right away. There's items that are very quick fix items that can go in, configurations can be changed, policies can be changed. There's other items that require heavier lifting. So as an example, the existing network infrastructure, the cable plant between this building and that building, as well as the cable plants in these buildings, are very poorly mapped. They're not standardized very well. It makes troubleshooting, it makes adding new items in the environment very difficult. Beyond that, there's no alerting system or monitoring system in place. So you're running this network in both buildings and between the buildings, but there's no visibility to the utilization of that network. So if we have a network pipe, how full is that pipe? Are we reaching the capacity of that pipe? Are devices in the network configured in a redundant fashion so that if one of them fails, it doesn't impact users in a significant way? If one of them fails, how are we being notified of that failure? Does this all make sense?
Meaning that somebody didn't pick up the phone and say, hey, my computer's not working, like there should be
Exactly.
some
So
red
go-
light popping up somewhere,
Right,
or some
so-
email being sent.
100%,
Okay.
right? So let's just say that at 3 o'clock in the morning tonight, Comcast goes down with the internet connection to the district. Ideally, some alert goes out, notifies appropriate personnel so they can start working on that issue. Is Comcast down? Is there a piece of equipment down here at the school? What do we do to put things in motion to start resolving that? Instead of employee X arrives at 6:45 in the morning, their computer doesn't work. They don't know what to do. They wait for some other individual or resource to come online at 7:30. Obviously, this is a hypothetical situation. And then we start solving the problem. We want to start solving the problem when it exists. We also want to put components in place so that if one piece fails, we have redundancy, so we just flip over to something else. And that applies to network, it applies to email, it applies to servers, etc. Data protection, very limited data protection in the district today, so backups are something that haven't worked in a very, very, very long time. Data protection is very critical from the perspective of attacks and ransomware. So if there is a ransomware event, if your data is compromised somehow, and there's no backups of that data, puts you in a very compromising position. Very challenging. Municipalities have a tendency to get attacked because very often we find municipal environments, and you can go Google as much as you'd like. There's many municipal environments that are not in good shape. They haven't been maintained. They're not being backed up properly. They don't have the right safeguards in place to protect themselves from cyber attacks.
When we were attacked, I mean, so we know that districts can be attacked because we've experienced it. We weren't being backed up at that time, so we didn't have a backup on that data.
So I think the best way I can put that, so the challenge with that attack was that you were being inbound attacked through your internet connection.
Okay.
And you only had a single internet connection in place. But based on some conversations that we've had and research that we've done, I think there is potentially some internet redundancy that existed, but the partnership with the provider was not being leveraged. So if the attack's coming from outside, you need to know where your resources are. You need to have them in place. You need to be able to go to them and figure out how to partner with them to resolve issues that come externally.
Got it.
So part of our observations were that the current state of the network is in a very challenged state, given a variety of attempts that were made to resolve that issue prior to the outside help being pulled in through the commissioner's office.
Got it. Okay.
And today, there's actually, with your Comcast connection, you have a denial of service mitigation platform in place. So what that means is that if a giant influx of traffic comes in, it will get absorbed somewhere and will minimize any impact to operations here at the district. It's not all bad news, just so you know, there are some good pieces in place here. You have a very modern Wi-Fi hardware in place. The challenge there is that the Wi-Fi hardware is not deployed in place in a consistent fashion. So there's varying Wi-Fi coverage throughout the two buildings. There really needs to be some attention paid to where those access points go and making sure they're deployed consistently. There needs to be attention paid to the speed of the network between the buildings as well as internal to the buildings. There's some good network hardware in place, but that hardware is not equipped properly to really put the right speeds in place to be able to maintain current standards and do what you want going forward. And then those pieces that I mentioned prior about alerting and visibility. So it's kind of like we have a plane and we're flying, but we don't have a map and we don't have any radar, and we're just hoping that we're going to stay airborne. The challenge with the technology is that if you are not finding a way to validate it on a consistent basis, there's probably challenges with it. And that's what we find on an ongoing basis in a variety of environments. And conversations like this are actually extremely important, because over time what you really want to do is you want to find a consistent report set that gets to Dr. Bailey and or yourselves so that you have the validation. These are the systems that we have. This is how we're going to produce proof and evidence that they are working on an ongoing basis, because then you're not having conversations like this. And Patrick, given his experience and tenure at previous districts, has shown very good leadership and thoughts around what needs to be in place. Obviously, some of this is going to take budget, which I know is one of the reasons that you wanted to hear this messaging tonight. But there is a path forward. It's just going to take a period of time and some investment to get there. But once you reach that platform and really establish some standards, consistency as how technology is deployed throughout the two buildings, throughout the district, and then make it scalable, highly available, things will work very predictably overall. Because my observation, the observation of my consultants, they're the ones that actually go and log into all the systems and do some of that stuff. It's very difficult for staff to rely on technology in the current state because it's unpredictable. There's no consistent configurations across equipment. There's no baseline standards that exist across equipment. You want to deploy things in a repeatable way. You want the configurations to be in an expected state. This is how we operate. And the platforms that exist today, there are some platforms that exist, backup platform not being utilized. The spam filtering platform was somewhat in place but not being utilized. Some of those issues have been resolved. But by system and really taking the charts, taking the control matrix and going through that, checking off the boxes one at a time. Okay, how do we get to a point of reasonable stability, and then how do we grow from there so that we truly have the right flexibility, that we meet current standards, and we can be a leading district from a technology perspective? That's really the goal. This is our ransomware threat mitigation matrix. This is something that we developed about 18 months ago to show folks from a ransomware perspective, because most folks are worried about ransomware. Where do you stand today from ransomware mitigation platforms? So operating system currency, are you using current operating systems that have patches? There are risks out there from that perspective. System patching, firewall deployment, the utilization of multi-factor authentication, which I know is something that has been moving forward here over the last several weeks. Something simple like cybersecurity awareness training and anti-phishing training, that's something that's actually free from the Commonwealth. The Commonwealth will pay for those licenses. They issue grants annually for that, and I have a very good relationship with them. I know that they have licenses available. We just need to make the call, and something very easy to deploy to the district. Not all of these are required on day one, but you want to start making the goal of saying, okay, we want to have a plan of attack here. We want to start turning these reds into yellows or greens so that we have a better sense of current state. And something like this actually is a very good measurement tool for folks like yourselves to say, okay, are we progressing based on where we started? Yes?
When the baseline is poor, as you stated
Yep.
earlier. Is there a common timeline in terms of companies move to over how many years to get it to a?
So
Good question.
speed with these types of changes really comes down to
Money.
desire of the organization and ability to commit budget.
Money.
So you can move as fast as you want to on some levels, but that does require budget. There are pieces that should be addressed sooner than others, in our opinion. So having a remote monitoring and management system, so having that visibility to what's going on, having the ability to consistently patch machines, making sure that your data is backed up, fixing the network backbone issues. Those are all areas where we see as priority items. Also the EDR licensing and rollout. So just for your information, EDR is next generation antivirus platform. So we remember the old antivirus software that was maybe definitions based and the definitions updated and flagged viruses. There's really no standard antivirus platform deployed throughout the school district in current times, in your current state, across Windows machines. And the EDR-based platform is a platform that looks for anomalies, it looks for unexpected situations, and addresses those as opposed to a matching system. So this software is smart enough to say, this series of events should not happen. This software should never exist. I have a list of software that's authorized. If you're not on the list, you're out. Those are tools that really prevent ransomware attacks from happening.
I think this is different than the slide we have. Is that right?
Oh,
Not over there.
Was this
is
updated?
this one on?
It may be different.
Okay.
This is on 14.
I don't know which copy was printed to you, so I apologize for that.
Like,
But
so
we
for-
did, we
yeah,
did make
so-
some revisions yesterday. We combined some things. We had
Yeah,
an
it's-
additional strategy session among my team. So this may be changed a little bit based on timing of when your packets were printed.
Okay. and
I'm happy to provide this to you.
That's fine. Yeah, like, so for example, your voice solution evaluation upgrade is a TBD, but we have numbers on our slide.
Yeah, so the voice solution, we've continued to do some additional analysis and research on that, trying to identify what the district has invested in the existing voice solution. We are aware that the existing voice solution is very unpredictable. It's not reliable, especially when calling between the buildings. It is currently not configured in a way that it is compliant with 911 from some federal standards. What we're trying to identify is exactly what the district has invested in the current telephony solution that's here, and how can that be leveraged going forward. So we did come up with some initial budgetary numbers, but I also don't want to advise you that you need to buy something that you've already bought. So we're continuing to do some diligence in that specific area around the telephony. There is some investment required there, but we're filtering down to determine exactly what that is.
Okay, and the one-time and monthly operation expense, I would assume that's a recurring monthly.
Right, so when we put these budgetary numbers, and these are not a price quote from Thrive, they're basically marketplace budgetary numbers. So when we think about some of these solutions, they're presented to our customers on a managed services basis, because that's the way a majority of folks are going. Now, in a school setting, sometimes there's some different opportunities to acquire software, educational discounts, and operate it internally. My biggest piece of advice to every organization from that perspective is determine what your internal skill sets are, what you can do well, what you can manage well and maintain well over time, and then find the line between insourcing and outsourcing. So we know that these particular areas are areas that we need to look to a third-party provider to take care of, do the care and feeding for, monitor 24 hours a day, like maybe if the internet goes down at 3 in the morning as an example, just an example. And these other pieces, machine deployment, network maintenance, those pieces we're going to handle internally. So finding where those lines are important, and I find it equally important for school districts to take advantage of any of those cost savings opportunities they have with educational licensing. Those are not always available through every provider, and they don't always come out consistently depending on which state we're working in, to be honest with you. So there are additional opportunities there. We will continue to provide our expertise and advisement to Patrick and Dr. Bailey as required around those items. This is food for thought.
I had another question, and I don't think it's related to money, but
I'm happy to answer all questions. Most of them anyway.
with this district being one-to-one on the Chromebooks and having access to internet, are there any concerns or threats for the students and their access or their, I'd say, vulnerabilities with their Chromebooks?
Good question.
I think, so the student Chromebooks utilize GoGuardian as a filtering solution here in the district. When we went through the audit process, GoGuardian appears to be deployed to all of those devices. I haven't personally reviewed your GoGuardian configuration, but I can get you very definitive information. GoGuardian is a platform that is very effective. It will work here at the district as well as when students take those devices home. It does content filtering. It also has the ability, from what I suggest as an artificial intelligence perspective, to identify content that should not be on the screen, as well as words that should not be typed in specific orders by keyboards. It has the ability to capture those types of things and alert personnel if there's a risk to a student, if a student's doing something they shouldn't be doing. So GoGuardian is a very, very good platform from that perspective. It's a platform that I would recommend. I've seen it in action. It does a very good job, so that helps to protect those students. My personal philosophy is that if you're enabling the students with those one-to-one Chromebook devices and they are taking them home, there is some responsibility to make sure that that type of software is in place, and the district is utilizing that software today.
Thank you.
So we are using that software here, correct?
GoGuardian, yes.
Yes, that has been come into contact in my house multiple times where the screen has popped up and says you can't go in it. So I know it works.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's good. At least that's functioning.
And you're just a K-8 district here,
Yes.
right? So I think more at the high school level, we see some more interesting things where students utilize ordinary productivity applications like Google Docs to exchange messages that might be inappropriate. And that's where some of those flags start to get raised around content. So it's a challenging thing, especially more so with teenagers, and as they kind of grow up and have access to all this technology and the internet. I find it just a general area of concern because kids like to get into a lot of anonymous chat areas when they have that opportunity. So having the filtering on those Chromebooks is great. I recently did some sessions for parents around safety and technology. The challenge for the school district will always be that kids have smartphones and those smartphones are outside your control. There is no good way to control those smartphone devices. The only remote opportunity you have to control them, if you will, is if they are attached to your Wi-Fi, because you can control that. But that being said, considering they are cell phones, if they turn off that Wi-Fi, they are untethered.
So with the three highest priorities in this list, do we have a sense of, like, are these fairly quick fixes? Let's say we had the money for this in our budget and we made this a priority. Would this be fairly quick fixes?
I would say top level items to get the network into the right EDR solution deployed, get backups running, get some remote monitoring and management tools in place. All that can happen very easily within 90 days, I think would be reasonable, definitely by the end of the calendar year. I think that's very attainable. I would focus on those items. The cloud migration is really recommended from the perspective of you have some older server hardware here. I don't believe it's ready to fall over tomorrow, but ultimately you want to get off that hardware, and then there's these older operating systems in place at the server level that I mentioned previously, so it likely makes sense to just move outside of where you're operating today and get to known modern systems.
Madam Chair, I know that the committee members are seeing a lot of dollar signs here. I'm wondering if you can speak to the fact that we've also have been able to see some savings based on some of the findings. For example, Barracuda.
Right, so there's some things that we found that were really just the result of technology that was not deployed or implemented. So
that we were paying for.
And honestly, I'll tell you, this is not the first time that we've seen this, right? And I'll use my example from before about evidence of what's implemented and the effectiveness of that implementation. So we did an assessment earlier this year for a company that actually makes auto parts. They had a previous assessment done 5 years prior to that with 47 recommendations. They made some investments. They hired a resource dedicated for that. And of the 47 recommendations, 3 of them have been accomplished. Because what we found was that a majority of the investment was on the shelf somewhere or never fully implemented. So from the perspective of the Barracuda, that exists. From the perspective of some of the backup items, some of that exists. Moving items to the cloud will fix part of that. From the perspective of the network, as I mentioned previously, there was a lot of good hardware here. It's just a question of how it's deployed, where it's deployed, making sure it's deployed on a consistent basis and in a way that conforms to best practice standards and guidelines.
So what you're saying is there were things identified that the system or the software was in place, paid for by the district, but really wasn't being utilized.
Correct.
And also the hardware, right? We had all
In
this
some cases,
expensive
yes. Yep.
hardware and then not utilized.
So now we're
Because one of the
utilizing
challenges
it.
that, and if you've toured the infrastructure here at the district, I spent some time doing that here last week, but there's not a lot of mapping or labeling that exists around the cable plants or the devices.
Mm-hmm.
So there's effort involved with kind of tracing some of those things out and getting it to a known state, but being able to repurpose existing investments, I'll use the phone system as another example, certainly makes sense. I wouldn't recommend that you go out and rip and replace and buy brand new to cover all these items. Some of these items, like an EDR item, that's licensing and software licensing. Most of that licensing these days is subscription-based. It's not like old software, you just go buy it and then you own it.
Mm-hmm.
It's generally subscription-based because of the way that revenue models have changed.
I have a question. So with our hardware that we, sorry. With the hardware that we currently have that was put in by multiple vendors, right? Because that's what's been happening over the past at least 5 years. They weren't labeling what they were putting in. Is that accurate to say?
I'd say that's fair.
Okay. That's what I just want to
I also say that, and I'm sure there's some variety of scopes of work that exist around those implementations of technologies. My belief is that those scopes would probably not follow through to 100%. So there's a lot of things that exist that are not followed through to 100%. Again, for every piece of technology, we want to establish a standard and a process and then deploy that same technology in the same fashion based on the use case. So what problem are we trying to solve? What user are we trying to enable? Create a standard for that, create a process for it. It goes back and fits right in with the proactive response that I was mentioning earlier, right? If we keep doing things in the same manner, make it repeatable, make it scalable, it becomes predictable. Otherwise, when we have a problem, we almost have no choice other than to be reactive because we have to go solve how it was implemented in that particular use case. And it even goes down to the simplest things. If the wireless access point goes offline in room X, we want to know that it goes offline so we can go out there and solve the problem before students come in and try to use their Chromebooks and, oh, there's no Wi-Fi today.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that doesn't happen very often, but these things do happen. Or maybe there's a bank of Wi-Fi access points that are offline because the device that they're attached to had a configuration issue or rebooted or had some fault.
Right.
So we want to make sure that all those devices are deployed consistently, best practice standards, and then monitored. And then one of the very big key points to monitoring is that somebody needs to get the alert.
Mm. So Patrick needs a new cell phone? Is that what
He needs
Patrick?
like 3 cell phones.
He has 3 cell phones. He needs a red phone. Give him a red phone.
Bat phone.
I have another question on the monthly amounts that we have on our thing is showing about a one-time, if we were to do everything, is $31,500, and then I think the monthly operating expense would be in the range of about $67,500. So it turns out to be about $810,000 a year. And I think that's probably going to be the challenge. This is different than what's on this slide because I think one of the 2/3 of that recurring expense is on the voice solution replacement. I'm curious about that one because that one on our slide says $40,000 a month. I'm just curious.
Is that accurate?
So from the perspective of voice systems and hosted voice systems, they generally charge you per extension per month. Now you have a software-based telephone system that exists here, It appears that a good part of that investment happened in June of last year. We're just trying to filter down exactly if that is a acquired asset or rented. It appears
So we
acquired.
don't know if we buy it.
Well, I'm working to figure that out. It requires some additional research. Ultimately, you want to have reliable voice connectivity to every room in the building, right, for a variety of reasons. That does not exist today. So the question becomes, what's the existing investment? Can it meet the need? And why is it not working reliably on a consistent basis? So we are working on that.
Okay.
I have a silly question.
And I think that, some of the questions around really what comes down to third-party vendor management, which is a big component actually in a lot of IT environments today. I was talking before about the insourcing and the outsourcing. So, being able to identify savings, and I know Patrick is going to add some additional comments after we talk, but being able to identify savings by insourcing some items that don't necessarily require outsourcing, and candidly, one of the things that we see in municipal environments sometimes is a lot of outsourcing that happens in a lot of different places. It's generally not the most practical move, and it's generally not the most budget-friendly move. It's not what I would suggest. So finding those opportunities for insourcing, and then the vendors that do exist, the vendors that are being leveraged, ensuring that the right scopes of work are in place, and then those scopes of work are being followed through to completion, are really mission critical to being successful. So having someone in place who has the ability to do that level of vendor management, maintain who those third parties are, what their responsibilities are, and how they're supposed to be executing is very important.
And that would be the director's job, right?
Yes.
Okay. Just checking. Okay.
Can I just, go ahead.
Sorry, one more question. So do we know how much we're paying for our telephones? I don't remember that bill. I don't remember exactly what it is. Do we have like a ballpark idea? Is it anywhere near this 40,000 that we're seeing?
I'm not sure.
Not sure.
I'll get that information for you.
I'm just curious to know like how accurate. I know it says
Right.
TBD on there, but it would be nice to know what our phone bill would be. So if we could find that out, that'd be
In the
great.
vertical phone solution vendor, they're providing some phone system services, they're also providing phone connectivity services. So part of what needs to happen is not just gathering that, but also filtering it out and saying, okay, what is actually the cost that we're paying for phone lines, phone utilization, connectivity to the outside world, and then what are we paying for support costs, licensing,
Right.
hypothetically telephone, handset rental, those types of things. I mean, this is a very reasonably large campus, right? There needs to be a phone in every room, but at the same time, the requirements of those telephones, and this could vary, but in a lot of cases, those phones really just need the ability to take calls in and out and dial 911. Sometimes there's additional requirements for speed dialing or outbound caller ID for 911 purposes, but figuring out exactly where that line is and making sure the system meets those needs and meets it reliably would be the goal. So what the capabilities are in the existing PBX likely meet a lot of that. The question is, why is the existing system not reliable? How do we modify it to potentially meet the 911 standards requirements dictated by the federal government?
And we would share this information with the town, right? Because I know the town is
Yeah, they're already aware
of all of that.
because at the same time, I believe they got a new phone system.
They're working,
at the same
okay.
time as the school district.
Yeah, we just heard about that at the meeting that I was just at,
Yeah.
so, okay.
Just back to this baseline again for a second. So would you say that, I think you had said earlier that most districts or companies, they're kind of in the middle. Is that also true for districts or whatever, that this is the first time they've done a technology audit? Are these results consistent with first-time audits?
So people usually do audits for a variety of reasons. Unknown state, change in personnel. So new personnel come in. We want those personnel to be able to come up to speed and do their job as quickly as possible and establish a strategy. This is basically, it creates time. So we can go in and do a quick activity over the course of about 45, 60 days and provide this type of feedback so that they can accelerate their planning. In the private sector, we'll do these for M&A reasons. We'll do them because there's been a cyber attack. My strong suggestion to every organization is to develop a process to report and create evidence on the systems that exist and review that evidence on an ongoing basis. And then if you want to have third party come by every 3 years, 5 years, 3 years, and review where you stand, that would be a best practice. But getting to the point of some type of regular review, I don't know that it necessarily needs to be at your level. My strong suggestion would be that annually you get some type of update.
Well, we were getting a report every year at least from our technology department, but it didn't mention any of this.
But the thing is, right, so you can get a
detail.
report from a resource, and I'll just be very transparent with you, right? That resource can come tell you all the great things that are happening with technology, but they're not measuring the implementation of technology at the district against the standard necessarily.
So I have one last question. I don't even know if you can answer it. So based on the past, let's say 5 years of how much money we've put into technology, which has been quite substantial, with that money spent, are we where other schools are that have done that, or are we below? Are we average? Are we above? That's what I want to know. As
Looking at Patrick in the back.
It's a good question to ask.
It would take some analysis on my part to give you the best answer.
Okay. If you get back to
I
us.
can tell
is gonna
you, this
speak.
report
Okay.
is,
Just
like, the
gonna
report
give
card is
some-
an F, but clearly Acushnet can do better.
Right.
We want to be an A+. And, I think Mr. Missler, when he comes on to speak, he can probably speak to your question a little bit more in terms of where we're going, but we want to be an A+, best practices.
That's right.
So instead of reactive, this to me is very proactive, this report.
And the good thing is we're having this conversation now before there's some catastrophic failure or other cyber attack event, right? Because we want to get ahead of it. But especially, I think, given the size of the district, the resources that are here, Patrick coming online, there's plenty of opportunity to get to where you need to go. And we just need to start taking steps in that direction and then monitoring it and measuring it on an ongoing basis so that when you do spend and make those investments, you feel very confident that you're getting the return that you're looking for and that it's serving learning and students in the best way possible.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Does anybody else have any other questions for Mrs. Sampson?
No. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Very
for your time.
informative. Thank you.
Happy to assist
For your
wherever
work with the
required.
district, and I know your
Appreciate
continued
it.
collaboration with Patrick. So next up, we have Patrick Missler, who, as you know, is our new technology director, and this is I thought, the perfect time for him to give you an update about the state of Acushnet since he's been here, and I will, give him a huge shout out that he's only
Thank
been
you.
here a very short time, but he has accomplished quite a bit since he's been in Acushnet. And I just feel with his experience in other districts, I feel as though Acushnet is very lucky to have Patrick on board as our technology director.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
So definitely have, thank you, Dave. That was phenomenal. He also, I'm a little less sugarcoaty, so we're going to get into the kind of weeds a little bit. But I wanted to say who I am, kind of qualify who I am. So I have 15 years of experience in education. I've got over 20 years of experience in technology, working with Fortune 500 companies. I've worked with almost every educational school in Central Mass, from designing their infrastructure to you name it. So it kind of gives you a little bit of background of who I am. I live and breathe technology, and I'm a bit of a workaholic. So my wife doesn't like that, but that's who I am. Kind of go over a few things. So I mentioned a bunch of items, and I don't want some of that scary, but I also want some of it too scary. So you'll see those numbers on the monthly side, like 1,000, 2,000. The problem with this district is, Dave alluded to it, there was a lot of reactiveness, a lot of putting out fires without having a full plan in place. So if we're going to build a football field, we think about, finding the plot, how we're going to use it, lights, access, etc. Here, from what I've seen, it hadn't happened. So here it's more put a football field wherever, and then you kind of deal with the issues that arise afterwards. So when we talk about phone system issues, there are phone system issues. Some of them are like Ray Bombs Act. We're not compliant with 911 for that reason. That's an issue for us. And then when we start to pull back the onion on how we fix those things, where things aren't labeled, where cables aren't run properly, or we don't have the switching equipment capacity because we're literally out of ports, that's a problem, and that adds to us as a district. And then we talk about things like there's no passwords on our switches, and we talk about security issues. So I've been here now 7 weeks, and I was working with Jason, I worked with Dave, and we were kind of running alongside each other, and everything that was really glaring, we took care of immediately. And some of those things were pretty bad. Some of their servers are wide open to the network, wide open to the public. And some of the things like no passwords, no phishing, it's a problem. And as I would showcase some of this to Paula and explain some of this to the admin team, we're going to crack some eggs, unfortunately, to make things better. And that's kind of how this works. And it's not to lay blame, it's just over time what's happened is if you're too reactive, all day long you're just putting out fires, you can never get ahead of it. It's that old adage, you're working too much in the business than on top of the business, right? On the business. So for us, what I wanted to get into is, I just handed you guys out a little paper, I think it was also in your packet for you. This gives you an idea of not only what Thrive has showcased that we have to take care of, this is what I also want to bring to the table. I'm very much a procedure guy, because I find that once you have a process and procedure in place, it cuts everything else out. That way you don't have to worry about anything, whereas someone has an issue all the way down to how do I turn my Chromebook on, you can relay them back to that procedure. It makes it super simple. That also then starts to bleed over to the families. They can see those documents. Your teachers see those. Teachers can teach teachers those things. It makes it really kind of structured. But going to the 2 pages I gave you, one is a checklist yearly for Aspen. Aspen is what the district uses for a student information system. It is our lifeblood here. It's where all our data exists. From my understanding, the district hasn't had Aspen for too long. So this is also a victim of not having a great thought out plan. So there's a lot of old data in there. There's a lot of bad practices. So our goal, and my goal moving forward, is to clean those up and put procedures in place. Some things that are just tweaks here and there, giving people a little bit more access, but having it structured so that way we know what they're doing, and then giving them the training here. What I've found so far is there's really been not a lot of professional development and not a lot of internal professional development, and I think we have opportunities there. And that's in the tech side of things. So what this is, that yearly Aspen procedure, this basically is something that we can hand out to principals, we can see it, everyone can see it as far as it touches Aspen at a high level, and it tells us, hey, on July 1st, I expect X to be done. I expect kids to be migrated up, calendars be set, their lockers cleaned out, lockers codes gone, all those kind of things. And there's some housekeeping that needs to be done. And then you can see further September 25th, all your reports need to be run, etc. You can see August 1st or something to that matter, we're going to start rolling over the district. And what I find is when you create something like this, it's super simple for someone that's putting out lots of fires, and then go back to a document that's been following along, checking as we go. It's like, that's right, we're on this item, I know where I'm at, makes life easy. So that gives you kind of an idea of how I work and how I think. And then the page is super hard to see, and I apologize. This is my 10-year plan. I've worked with this on multiple districts, and they seem to love it. And I know Pat McIntyre will love it as well. Long story short, this is a baseline of infrastructure and things that we have in the district. This gives us our 10-year, and 10-year you may say, why do we want a 10-year plan, Patrick? That's a lot, we need 1-year plan, and I'll give you that. But with a 10-year plan, the way this works is, I can spread out what we need over 10 years, and generally what we do is we spread it out over 4 or 5. And so what that means is instead of me coming here and saying, hey, I'm so sorry to do this, can I have $1 million? And you all laugh at me. I say, here's a 10-year plan with that $1 million spread out over 5 years. And that way it makes it, or whatever it is, and I'm just using $1 million as an arbitrary number, but it gives it a little bit more palatable. And then that also means in 5 years when we need to replace the old dying equipment, I'm not back at this table saying I need $1 million. And this seems to work great with all districts, so that way you'll see on a baseline what we need, and of course there's additions to this. There'll be a piece of software that gets added, there'll be a piece of hardware that gets added, something may get adjusted, and this thing can be public facing, families in the community can see this, and we just simply update it as we go to kind of give everyone a feel of where we're at. And then I also don't scare the business manager with anything crazy outside of throwing something at them. But going back to the document, you'll see one side of it is one tab in our spreadsheet. It kind of gives you an idea of what we're looking at. The other side is actual numbers. I put in numbers that way I know where we're getting to. And we have some forecasting. We're running 1 gig of internet now. I'm assuming in the year 2027, we may need 2 gig. But I'm not sure. But I'm going to put that in there as a placeholder to give us something to look forward to. All right, so that way no one's scared for what's coming next. Going back to what we were talking about before with David, What I've seen here is, again, going back to putting out a lot of fires, there's been a lot of reactionary measures. And what that is there's been a lot of consultants hired, a lot of outside vendors hired that overlap in so many areas without a ton of oversight. So you have people doing things that, who knows? But if you're too busy, again, working in the business and you can't check up on them, make sure they're doing their job, we're not holding them accountable, there may be systems that we're not actually using or we're spending money on. And I'll give you an example. We found that we had one vendor in particular. The district wasn't getting any service from them, and they just sent us a bill for $18,000. We're not paying that. We don't need to pay that. Our backup system that hasn't been backing up since like 2014 for one version of it, that was $6,000. We don't need that. We're going to change that over. And as I explained to this, I'll explain to this group, is where that's not on the table at the moment. An actual backup system will be in place shortly. And that may cost us $4,000 or $5,000. But it gives you an idea of what we've been spending, and it's just, again, you've been too reactionary. You can't stay on top of all these systems if you're too busy. Structure is what's needed here. So, gives you kind of an idea of where I'm thinking. Let me throw a couple other things at you guys. Inventory. I was hoping to come in here and have an inventory and run around and have a great time. We haven't had an inventory, I think, since 2013. So the hard part with that is it doesn't give me an idea of what we have, or what's gone, or what's come in. And a lot of districts have issues, and you saw from Dave's presentation, security is key for us. It impacts all our kiddos, impacts all our staff, and impacts all of us. So if you have devices coming into this network that we don't track, we don't know, they literally just plug into a wall jack, God only knows what's happening. And I can give you a little weirdness. I worked at a police station a while back, and we found that one company came in and they had one of those SETI at home where it searches for extraterrestrials or whatever, and that was on a police network. That someone, because they didn't pay attention to what was happening with that consultant, they plugged it in and thought, no big deal, but that's a big deal. And we need those things here. Or we don't need those things. We need monitoring here. We need structure here. So I'm proud to say our phenomenal tech team, and I love these guys, Anthony, Ken, Kathleen, phenomenal. They've already banged out the entire AES. We already have the full inventory for them, and we're doing the full inventory for here. And again, I've been here about 7 weeks, and we've been able to patch some serious holes, password issues, firewall issues. We tried to put in some structure everywhere. And again, I can't thank this admin team enough. Everybody's been super fun and helpful, and I love going around on the bus. I had no idea about Acushnet, but on the way here, everyone said to me, Patrick, you got to try the creamer. and I got to say, when Dr. Bailey said to me, we're going to go to the creamer, I thought, okay, this is fantastic. I must have brought $40 with me. I'm going to buy every piece of ice cream they have. But this community is phenomenal. And kind of going back, it is a small community. So we should be able to do this really, really well and effective. Yeah. And that's all we have to look at. With structure and process and procedure, we can bang this out. So I don't want to take up any more time. You guys have any questions, please?
Thank you very much.
I don't have any questions. Does anyone else have questions?
I think just to get our minds wrapped around this, we probably need to know what the heck the budget's been, what it currently is,
right?
What it's paying for, what we're missing. Like I think that's you probably already targeted a lot of those things, but I think for us to get a feel for it, that's probably where we need to start.
We have a budget subcommittee that's planned, so we'll be going all over this.
I agree. I think, one, I'd like to unpack some of these things a little bit in terms of priority and risk and really understand what we would be getting. But to John's point, I think, I feel like maybe we need a little conversation around long-term priorities and kind of what we're looking at and think through how we kind of prioritize those and what we focus on. So
yeah.
Well, I think we also, I would appreciate and put a lot of weight into, obviously, a recommendation.
Absolutely.
From Patrick. So, I think that's a big part of it too.
I think, and that's done at the budget subcommittee level, right? Where Patrick would come in and he'd give us his points, and then we would
I could definitely put it on the next agenda.
Yeah.
For sure.
And then we would come back to the general, John and I would come back to the school committee and present, or somebody would present what we've come up with and answer any questions that you have. Right, is that how it would work?
Yep, or we can also ask the business manager to, in conjunction with Patrick Missler, we've got two Patricks, but together they can come up with some type of document for the school committee to show what we've been spending on technology, what's budgeted, if that's what you're asking for, Mr. Tebs, but I think we can easily do that.
Yeah, and I think one of the things we did during COVID was we had a standing agenda item that covered, just updates. And I think this is important enough that we should have some kind of every meeting. I would like to have this on the agenda for every meeting. It doesn't have to be a lengthy presentation, but just to kind of get a sense of where we are. I don't know if anyone else.
So Patrick would put together sort of like your spreadsheet that you have here, and then you would tell us what you've done so far, and then we can, in our minds check off, and then costs next to it, right? Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, we can definitely put a standing technology update on our agenda. We know that this is a priority for the district right now. We've learned a lot through this audit. We suspected things before the audit, and is negative as this news is, it's reality. It's where the district is. But now, hopefully, we can look at it as we have the information and we know we have the right person. We know what we need to do to move forward.
Right. We didn't have the information before, so knowledge is power, right? So now we can take action.
We thought we had the knowledge.
And to the long-term planning, I think we have other things in the fire too, in terms of we're doing a safety assessment, right?
Right, that's
we
right.
need to understand what comes of that, if anything, where that falls in terms of priorities, right? So all of those things, I think we need to just kind of look at the 3, 5, 10-year plan. And
Yeah.
Any other questions for Patrick?
No questions, but thank you for hitting the ground running, and clearly you've already made a lot of progress, and we look forward to hearing how you continue to make progress and helping in any way we can. So this is a priority for the district.
And I would encourage you to continue to be less sugarcoating and
we don't mind that.
Yeah, we don't need to.
That's one thing about Patrick. He's very transparent, and he says it to us in a way that even people who don't have that deep level knowledge understand what's going on with technology. So I feel as though the district is in very good hands with Patrick Missler.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next we want to just go over, we didn't make, the policy subcommittee recently met to review several policies, and actually we need to schedule another meeting to go over some of those policies because we needed more information. But one of the things that the subcommittee wanted to do was bring this policy up to the full committee. That's policy EEAA. It's walkers and riders. As you know, we've had some bumps with the bus transportation the first few days of school, especially at the elementary school with timing. Our buses are at capacity, and we realized that many riders are riding the bus, and it's really against the policy. We're spending time picking up children a block away. Our policy states that anyone who lives a mile or less will have private transportation into school. So I don't know if Mrs. Gomes, if you wanted to speak to that, because you are on the policy subcommittee, if you wanted to talk about how the district did not want to enforce that this year. We wanted to give families enough time, a year's time. We would advertise it that moving forward, we would really enforce this, and perhaps children who are being picked up currently who live a block away. I know there's a stop at Reservoir, for example, and a path was made, and the bus company tells us if there's 10, 12 kids, that all takes time to get those kids loaded on the bus, get them all seated. So, our buses, scheduling is an issue. Our buses are very full right now. So I don't know if you want to speak to that, Mrs. Gomes?
No, I just agree with it. And we had talked about this in the past as well. I thought it was 2 miles, but it's only 1 mile. I really feel, I know we don't have sidewalks everywhere, but I think within a mile, a parent can bring their child, rather than us taking 12 minutes of the bus's time, or having to get another bus for $66,000, just because we have so many kids taking the bus. we really need to work this policy for the taxpayers to make sure that, we're getting the best bang for our buck. And like I said, the policy for a mile is, I think, very generous. And I think other districts have 2 miles. Is 2 miles.
I will say that, families have always been able to contact my office if there's some unusual circumstance where there isn't a sidewalk and there's a 5-year-old, riding the bus. We take a look at everything. We work very closely with the bus company. Our business manager right now has really been sort of spearheading this, and I'm sure he's going to discuss this in his report tonight. But this is the initial messaging tonight to let the school committee know that we will be messaging throughout the year that this policy will be enforced next year. Our buses are so full, and they're not getting to school on time in the afternoon to pick up the kids or, making their rounds the way they need to. So that's just one way to look at it.
The other thing that I want to mention is, and this was my thought process, is during COVID, there were so many parents that were able to bring their kids to school. Like, it magically just happened. So I don't think it's going to be like a major impact on a lot of parents. It will be an issue for maybe a couple or a handful. But other than that, I think parents can make the arrangements for the taxpayers.
That's right.
I also think it's important to point out that it's noted in the policy that there are always exceptions and that those will be evaluated by Dr. Bailey on a case-by-case basis. So if parents are particularly concerned, if it's a student that's traveling in what you feel is a hazardous area to and from school, then that will be evaluated. And so, and also that we're providing some leeway time over the next year so that planning can be put in place. So. Yep. We're trying to be reasonable about the policy and balancing out the needs
and we'll
of
post it
families
everywhere.
and the budget.
We're posting it,
we plan to
newsletters.
message it on our website, newsletters. We just wanted to bring it to the school committee's attention first. Nothing has been changed with this policy. It remains the same. The policy subcommittee just wanted to message this, that within a year's time, we'd like to enforce it because it's not being enforced. And as a matter of fact, when the bus company found out that we had quite a few children on our buses, they were ready to take them off this year. And I said, no, we're not doing that. That's not enough time. I'd like to take the year. We'll get through the year. But I just felt like it did not give people enough time to just take them off the bus this year.
Right.
Can someone just get like the number of students we have that have addresses that are like within a mile of the school?
Yeah, so we will get that, and that will be known to those families that you're within the mile. But yes, we can certainly. So are you requesting that on behalf of the committee?
I'd like to see it. I'm just curious.
Okay.
Yeah, just the number. I mean, if somebody lives a block away, that I have zero concerns. I probably have a little bit more if someone's, 3/4 of a mile. Like it's just
we already have that information. I don't have the number off the top of my head, but we'll work with their
just
to obtain that information already. So we can get it to you rather quickly.
So we can easily get you that information. Any questions on that?
Yes, this sort of, bothers you, like it bothers all of you. But before we implement that, we should probably work with the, questions with the police department and the Department of Public Works, as far as looking at all, roads that are accessible, that children will be crossing, that they have proper crosswalks and protections before we even go there. As we all, we all realize that, Acushnet roads aren't the safest in the world. We don't have sidewalks, and there's a lot of high speed, and there's a lot of curves, and so I'd like to see maybe a safety audit, as you're talking about, done before, we move in this direction.
That's assuming that people are actually going to be walking. I'm assuming that they're just going to be privately driven.
Right. Well,
so I think we should find out how many people, maybe we can do a survey to those mile people of how many kids would possibly have to walk, right? And how many would be privately driven?
Yeah, there are a lot of families that, there's single, parent families that have children, other younger children at home, who can't,
Bring their kids to school and they drop their own kids?
because they've got younger children at home. Many are working, and they have a babysitter who is babysitting other children. So I think there are a lot of circumstances of families that walking is the only alternative other than riding. So I wouldn't just jump in. I think we're really, in my estimation, we're putting some children at risk if we don't do some precautionary work.
So would a survey, as Mrs. Gomes suggested, be sufficient to those students within a mile?
Well,
to
I would
ask
say
them whether or not they would walk or have private transportation?
And then even then we should basically do an audit, a safety audit of our excessive roadways, just in case.
I just would need some clarification on that. Who would do that?
Probably could deal with the town administrator. You work with the DPW and the police department.
Can I suggest that we get a little bit of information? So first, like to Ron's point, let's have a baseline of the students that this is going to be impacting. And I assume it's not many. That might be a wrong assumption, but and then let's do some outreach to those families to kind of get a baseline of where they're at, whether it's through a survey if that's easier, and then we can come back with some information and decide what is necessary to ensure safety. I don't know, Sarah, did you have a comment?
No, again, the policy has been on the books
There's no
forever.
changes to the policy.
And now we're coming to the point where there's so many kids taking the bus that we need an extra bus, which could throw a big wrench in our budget and everything like that. And like I said, during COVID, there was, 90% of parents brought their kids to school, maybe 80%. So, and like I said, we're going within a mile. We're not going 2 miles or 3 miles. And I just feel that, with everything like reservoir, that path was created, like Paula had just mentioned, for the walkers. And then how far is a mile? Like, where are we going? We're going reservoir, we're going to the next Briar, we're going to that complex there.
Yeah, we can definitely.
Well, that's why I think we need to understand where the students are coming from.
Yeah, I mean.
And then of course we look at, what roads are being crossed by these students, and then, to your point, Mr. Howcroft, are there crosswalks in place and what needs to happen here? And we can assess from there, but right now we don't know.
As many parents that may complain that they don't have a bus stop, we have many parents complaining that the bus is late, or you know what I mean? Like, it's a balance right now, and our buses are full. All of our buses are full, and when the policy subcommittee looked at this policy, it's not being enforced.
Right.
So.
And we do need to realize that this is not a limousine service. This is public transportation. Or door-to-door.
It's not a door-to-door. And I think sometimes families think, because there's always been a stop at this particular corner, that means there's always going to be a stop at that corner. And really, it's the needs of who's on the bus list at that time. The bus company sort of develops those routes based on the neighborhoods and the routes and the kids, and really they're looking at safety as well. So we do work hand in hand very closely with the bus company. I can tell you that this year we brought all the drivers in for a little orientation meeting. We gave them all T-shirts, and this was spearheaded by our business department, Brian Hyde, and also Patrick McIntyre. And we have a great relationship with the bus company, and we want that to continue. So we will continue to work closely with not only our partners in the bus company, but also our families. We want to work it out with everybody.
Even for the folks that live in Reservoir, and I don't know if this is the case, but I think, we even, need to make sure that we've got a chute, right, with cars that are coming through there and lined up, right, so the kids that are walking through Reservoir,
There's a crosswalk there, and there's 2 signs. We put those up about 6 years ago.
I understand.
To make sure.
But, I think we should take a look at it and make sure that it's being
monitored.
Yep, for sure.
Did you have a question or
Just to
comment?
reduce speculation, with our current student population, there would be 28 middle schoolers that would be affected by this rule change and 27 elementary school
Okay.
bus riders. So we have that information. We have it by stop, by street, by bus. We'll get that information over to you.
So, just so the public can hear, it was 28 middle schoolers and 27 elementary
Correct.
that would be impacted by the policy.
With our current student population of riders now.
Oh, thank you. Okay, great. That's really helpful to
50
know.
kids.
And so I think we get some more information from here and then continue the discussion.
And just going back to Mr. Howcroft's point, in working, some of the things we've even noticed just in our school setting is that the town doesn't have signs for the school, like on Middle Road. And people are going fast, and
Right.
that's a problem. So I noticed in meeting with the colonel, and I know I'm switching a little bit, but it ties into what you said, he's making some recommendations about some of those safety issues as well, that as it pertains to our campus. And just to, let you know, he's been in the schools quite a bit, doing a very thorough job, meeting with our leadership team next week, and I don't have an exact end date of when he's ready to present, but I'm sure it will be fairly soon. But anyway, getting back to this.
Will he be looking at bus safety as well? In this
He did not look at bus safety, he looked at campus
vulnerability of
safety, but
This is
children
the
on buses
safety
that...
he
audit that
looks
John
at
was
incidents at a
kind of
school
leading.
setting, and he said the majority of incidents that occur are medical or health related or accidents versus like an active shooter type of thing. So he's looking at things from many different perspectives, and just to go along with what you said, we don't even have signs coming from the center of our town to let people know that there's a school
There's
coming
a
up,
school coming
that
up.
this is a school district coming up. And then the signs on this side, coming from Peckham Road, you'll see it's very old signage, very
We should have the
dated.
flashing lights, the flashing.
Right, yeah.
The other, before I forget, and I've been meaning to mention this every time I drive to the school, which is daily. The road, middle road, has a line, the lines is so you can pass people. It's a broken line, it's not a double line. So if you're going
In front of the school?
in front of the school, so if you can go 15 miles, how are you passing anybody? So I meant to mention that to you, that needs to get addressed.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be able to pass. And nobody notices that, right? I looked at it, I've been looking at
It
it.
seems so unheard of.
How are you gonna pass during the school zone?
Right,
Also,
so,
we would,
I was
want
going to
to
make a joke.
Bite your tongue,
at
Jake.
least
Bite your
check
tongue.
about, at the time children are going home or coming,
Yeah.
that there are adequate patrols, in the area, in the event any child is, in difficulty. And that's another factor that we should, be reassured of before you implement this policy.
and that's why we're bringing it up for discussion.
Right, there's no vote being taken tonight
Well, the
because there's
policy's
no
already in
change.
place.
Right, there's no change to the policy. There's no vote being taken. It's really to, as we as a subcommittee reviewed the policies, realized it really wasn't being implemented
And I can
and
tell you
enforced.
that the bus company wanted to have this enforced because of the issues we're having this year on the bus. And I said, no, we weren't ready to go there because in fairness to our families, they'd already made plans to take the bus. So we're looking at it, everything right now, but this is the policy as it stands. Unless the policy subcommittee tells me otherwise and the committee votes on a different policy, this will be the policy that's enforced with, as you say, some precautionary measures and information to families and surveys out to families, etc. So we will do our due diligence to be sure that obviously safety is
Use
number
a
one.
strategic plan method,
Yes, safety is our number one issue in the district, and we want to be sure that our children are getting to and from school safely. Any questions on that? Okay, so that is all I have tonight.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great discussions. All right, so we're going to move on to our business manager's report.
I'm as tall as the other Patricks. Chairperson Downing, members of the school committee, Dr. Bailey, thank you. Good evening. Thanks for your continued support of Acushnet Public Schools. As I prepared for this meeting, I was going through all the notes of previous meetings, and I stumbled across, I believe, Mr. Brian Hyde's preamble. I hesitated about recycling it until I read it, and I really love it. So I'm going to continue with it because it really resonates with me. So I'm going to kick that off. The Acushnet School Business Office is committed to supporting continuous improvement, transparent communication, and fiscal responsibility leading to student achievement and student success. We are a unified team with the purpose of being a high-performing school district. So just keep that in mind. We are unified, and we're more than just fiscal management. We're here to support the success of the students. So without further ado, I'm going to get into my notes. I'll try to keep it relatively quick, but please stop me if you have any questions. Fiscal 23 budget, so school year's kicked off. We've reached the end of August and we're into the last month of the first quarter. Not much to say from a budget standpoint. The beginning of the year, school expenses have been incurred. In September, the salaries for the teachers, paras, school staff will start flowing in. We'll see an impact to the budget. But as far as that goes, it's pretty expected as of the end of August. Previously, we've mentioned the need for Munis accessibility to our administrators. This is super important to me. It's super important to our administrative staff. It allows them to live in and manage their budget outside of just coming to me and asking me questions and what do I have left and how much money is there. So we are working towards that. Unfortunately, we can only move as fast as the town allows us to, which they have been great. I've met with them on a few occasions to discuss this. They're investigating how many licenses we have right now to share with our administrative staff, if we would need more, what the costs would be. And then on top of that, there's other underlying issues with our chart of accounts and our fund accounting and our departmental accounting from a town level and on to the schools. And Todd Hassett, the current interim town accountant, has been wonderful. We've been seeing eye to eye on all of these topics, and we think between me and him we could spearhead this and really build efficiencies within the school and town accounting systems. So that's very important to me, and that will allow us to, again, just better manage our budget, better report our data more accurately, more timely, and it'll give resources to administrative staff and the town of Acushnet interested in knowing more accurate data.
Pat, can I ask a clarifying question, please?
Sure.
So Munis, so what you're saying is that previously or currently the administrators don't have access to the budget detail, or haven't had access to the budget detail?
The access to the budget via Excel spreadsheets. Most school districts operate in a convention where administrators will have their own accounting system access to their budget so that they can see live.
So they can track
their
what they're doing.
budget, their actual expenditures, their encumbrances, and their available budget.
Sure.
We've made a workaround for now, which has been met with excitement, I should say. But the main goal is to get our administrative staff Munis access, get them trained on how to use Munis, and streamline the budget management process, the PO process, the approval processes, and get rid of stacks of paper and 8 signatures on 4 different documents, things like that. So it all starts with Munis and accessibility to our administrative staff.
So that accessibility hasn't existed?
No.
The only 2 people that I'm aware of that have Munis access currently and in the past are the business manager and the business office accountant, Sandy Raposo.
Is it common in other districts that administrators have access to the detail of their building's budget?
It is. It's very common, and we can be careful with access we allow them to have. It is an entire accounting system. The town and myself would work to make sure that we limit the administrators' access to just what they need. And again, it would be focused on account detail, which would include their budget, transactions that they've put through, purchase order approval and requests, and that's pretty much all they would need. But it would save us hundreds of thousands of pages of papers. It would save us so much time in the process of getting things from PO to approval to order to in the door to paid. It would make great waves for the district.
Thank you.
So we are working on that, but you know, again, we can only move as fast as our resources allow us to. So with that in mind, I'm excited to work on some additional reports that have previously been neglected from my point of view. The grant reporting and our special revenue accounts. We've put together some work papers already that have painted a better picture in status of our grants. That, you know, again, hasn't been shared with the staff necessarily. It's been kind of kept at home in the business office or not kept at all. I think this will open our eyes to other resources outside of the local funds that are available to us, whether it's for upkeep of facilities, whether it's freeing up grant money to you know, help fund the infrastructure problem that we're dealing with. You know, there's a lot of special revenue accounts that we have that, you know, we just haven't considered. One included is just the school lunch account. I'm not going to get into crazy detail. There's a lot of money there, and you know, the school lunch director wasn't made aware of that, and we're paying, you know, thousands of dollars a month for repairs when we have the money to replace faulty equipment that's been here since, you know, the beginning of since the schools have been built. So there are funds available, and we just need to communicate that information to you, to administration, and come up with a game plan on how we can best utilize these funds outside of the local budget to improve the overall school environment.
Can I?
Sure.
Should that have been communicated to the budget subcommittee during our
It's
meetings?
going to, so I'm going to get there as well.
Okay.
Sorry, like I said,
No,
I'm not
that's
trying
okay.
to get into crazy detail, but we do have big plans for the next budget subcommittee. Okay. So on top of you know, preparing for the fiscal 24 budget, presenting a timeline that we're excited about, a new budget process where we're going to allow administrators to sort of own their budget department funds and present them to us. We're also going to, you know, discuss grant funds that are available from previous years, grant funds that are available now that we have, that we're budgeting for, and then all the special revenue accounts. What kind of funds are available there for us to improve on small things throughout the district.
Thank you.
So I'm excited to again get that information over to you. I think it's valuable, and we'll paint a pretty good picture of our fiscal situation. All right,
You'll be seeing more of him at our subcommittee meetings with policy and budget, so.
Okay.
So moving on to facilities, you know, the big project going on is the elementary roof project. You know, we do have a wonderful team. Zach, the OPM from Arcadis, and Nora, the architect from Next Phase Studios. They've been nothing but supportive. You know, they've backed us on every step of the way. They've been very, very communicative to us with everything that's going on. So I want to thank them. Currently, we're looking at an end of September completion date for the roof project. You know, it keeps getting pushed out when we run into rain days like these. We've had, you know, labor issues, change of scope, small changes of scope that have delayed the project, and then, you know, just supplies from the supply chain. But you know, it's well underway. We've had a few snags, but we've dealt with them accordingly, and we're making good progress on that. So that's the roof project. Sign replacement project. So I don't know if you guys noticed when you drove in, the 2 brand new signs in front of both the schools. So those look great. I was excited about that. We're actually getting our pole banners delivered and installed next week, so we'll have a little more flair on the campus. And then by the end of October, we're going to get our large electronic district sign installed, and that'll really, you know, catch everyone's eye and brighten up the area for us. Last on facilities is gymnasium floors. So our gym floors take a lot of wear and tear. You know, we share the areas not only with the students, but with outside groups that rent the space, things like that. We are refinishing both school gym floors the week of Thanksgiving. The Acushnet Fairhaven Basketball League has agreed to share that cost with us. League president and Acushnet resident Scott Bryant has been great to us, and he's excited, you know, to do that so that he can benefit from the refinished floors as well. So we're excited about that. Food services, the year's kicked off well with food services. We have a new food service director in Shelley Mello, which you guys have been made aware of already. She's great. She's eager to learn. She's eager to succeed. She's hit the ground running. We haven't had any complaints with school lunch or breakfast, and everything's been going smooth so far with it. And then that takes us to transportation. So transportation has been great. There have been the beginning of the school year bumps in the road that are expected. With the help of our principals from both schools, the support of teachers during dismissal and arrival, and Amaral Bus Company, we've been able to mitigate a lot of those problems. I can't stress the importance to the subcommittee, the policy subcommittee to revisit the EEAA as was already discussed. It's important to just take a look at that policy and understand, our needs and where we want to go with that policy. We do get calls and emails every day, whether it's my office, the front offices, about parents that want special accommodations. They want new stops. They want safer stops. They want different stops for AM, PM, today, tomorrow, yesterday. So it gets a little crazy, but if we can put a policy into place that firms up these ideas that we want to stand by, I think now's the time, and that will help, remedy some of these phone calls and issues that we're dealing with. Just in conversation with Amaral, there are issues with, the length of time that it's taking us for dismissal and getting students home, and then parents are late to their extracurriculars with their kids, or we have unsafe bus stops or not enough bus stops, or transporting within a mile. Amaral did communicate, not too long ago, our schools had 16 buses on the routes. Right now we have 9 buses and 10 buses, and our population's only gone up, our stops have only gone up. So by revisiting this policy, whether we take stops away or we add stops, it might be in consideration to think about the number of buses that we have en route, and the costs that would be associated with potentially adding a bus, if we do want to provide, if we decide to provide stops to all kindergartners, or if we do continue to provide stops within a mile. Maybe the answer is another bus. Obviously that means more expense, something to discuss in the policy subcommittee as well as the budget subcommittee. So just something to keep in mind. And then again, I just want to reiterate, the relationship with the town since I've been here has been wonderful. They've all welcomed me with open arms. I've met with them on numerous occasions to just get on the same track, get on the same page with them. And we do feel unified. We're working in our own means to local funds, but they're willing to work with us on things, and they understand, our needs, and we understand their needs, and it has been a good collaboration so far. And as we build the fiscal 24 budget and complete end-of-year reporting and things like that, work with the town on munis licenses and the chart of accounts, I think it's just super important to build on those relationships and to appreciate them for what they're worth, because they're dealing with the same thing as us as a school district, with availability of funds and availability of access to the accounting systems, and they do want to help us improve. So they've been great. I can't thank them enough, and I look forward to future endeavors with the town as well. So that was fast, but if anyone has any other questions, I would be more than happy to answer it.
Can you speak a little bit about the town meeting that you noted in your report for the public's
Sure.
knowledge,
So
please?
the town of Acushnet is anticipating holding a town meeting on a Monday in October. I believe the date's still tentative. They'll be making an adjustment to our local appropriation, but it's really just a housekeeping adjustment. And what they're doing is they're taking the school choice money out of our budget, because it really belongs more to the town, as we don't have anything to do with the high schools, as we don't have our own high school. So that's the town's responsibility to manage that aspect of the budget. And in turn, by removing that, they're adding the short-term interest on the roofing project, which does belong to us. And they're granting us $75,000 of tuition expense to put towards our collaborative expenses for FY23. Mind you, that was encumbered in FY '22, the encumbered.
21, 19,
Yes.
18, 17.
Okay.
So I just came from this meeting, so.
Yeah, so it was encumbered in '22. You know, they disallowed it, but, you know, by disallowing it, they're giving us the money back in 2023 to pay
Oh,
for it
thank you.
accordingly. So,
But this was.
So can I just,
Yeah,
so
please.
I was just at the town meeting regarding the CPC funds. And so with the audit that they've done with their new people, the new accountant and financial people, they found that over the past 11 years that they've been double dipping. So basically, the town has been setting aside $136,000, as well as the school budget has put aside $136,000. So there's obviously $136,000 left over that went into the general fund, so it didn't just disappear. However, my school committee hat was that we've been trying to balance a budget, at least me, for the past 7-8 years, and always having to scrimp and save, you know, $75,000, $120,000, when there was really no need, because we were adding $136,000 that we never needed to. So this was just found, and it's no fault to anybody that's been working here at the town, right? Because it's an auditing problem, and they're no longer using that auditing company. With that said, we are getting back the $75,000 that we had, the warrant or the prepaid tuition. We're getting that back because, again, we have $136,000 that technically should be ours, as well as the $12,000, and there's additional funds here as well. So we're getting back that money, but I just need to make it said that over $1 million of our children's money has been dissipated over the past 11 years, and that's shocking. That's just absolutely shocking. But I'm glad it was caught, and moving forward, hopefully we'll be able to use those funds, you know, for our kids.
and again, just to speak on, you know, on behalf of the town, you know, Todd has been phenomenal.
Yeah, amazing people now.
I think he's in
Amazing.
a great seat to, you know, look at this budget process with us and help the town on their side as well as us, and just restructure the budget, you know, make sure that our true expenses are in our budget and the town's true expenses are in their budget, and that will clean up a lot of, you know, this back and forth, this encumbering, and then, you know, double counting that entire exercise. And you know, with that being said, you know, it's going to be our focus to make sure that those items are addressed as well as we build the FY24 budget.
Thank you.
Of the total money, you know, amount of funds that are going to be reallocated, you know, the increase in Chapter 70, you know, when the budget was, you know, passed, that we didn't know the figure, and the state legislature put more money in than the governors. How much of that is being offset? The state money is being offset by the total figure that...
I'm not sure I understand the question. I'm sorry.
How much more did the town get for Chapter 7? And under the state legislature, you know?
I don't know that number off the top of my head. You know, I've inherited the FY23 budget, but with the new numbers for fiscal 24, we can definitely get that information for you.
It'll offset, that figure would offset, so if there are any questions on the town meeting floor, as far as, you know, reallocating more local funds, that the response can be that we received more money from the state.
We didn't need to receive more money because the $135,000 was always there.
Right, but I mean, what I'm trying to say for example, this article that you know, that gives us the money, that it doesn't pass. You know, or,
okay.
you see what I'm saying?
Gotcha.
That, you know, it's tabled, whatever what happens to it, the one selling point is that we received more money that would offset, so the total figure that will go, that the local taxpayer would be responsible for could be much lower than the figures that you outlined here. You follow what I'm...
Even though the funds, though, are already there, so
Right.
we're not raising taxes or anything like this for this.
In fact, you know,
So we can bring that up as a point.
it's a selling point, yes. And I think we should have that figure, that additional funds came from the state legislature to offset any rising costs that we were, you know, the town of Acushnet and all of the towns were faced with. That's the point I'm trying to make.
Yeah, and again, really the impact on us for this town meeting, it's just a true reallocation of our budget. A portion of our budget that they gave us for '23 really belonged to the town budget, and then on the flip side, a portion of their budget really belonged back to us, so.
I always want to, and this may come about when if question 1 passes, that allow more money to come in for education, whether we get into a supplementing type of issue. And if that issue where additional money goes directly to the schools, for enhancement of activities and goals, or is it just supplants and it just goes to the town budget, the town general expenses, and we just live on a.
Well, and those are things we're going to have to analyze as we build the '24 budget. I mean, we're going to have to start at what are our needs and what do we need to ask for. Do we want to be level funded, level service? It's the whole process that we have to go through and convince the town that we truly need the funds that we're asking for, and that it's going to benefit us and our students at the end of the day. So.
I raise the point because I think we should be vigilant, especially
Agreed.
when it comes to future funding and whether supplanting or supplementing.
Sure. Okay. Any other questions for Patrick?
Is it Pat or Patrick?
It doesn't matter.
Well, somebody's got to pick something. Are you Pat? Are you Patrick? What's going
on? In the room is Patrick, otherwise I don't.
Well, we have 2 Patricks and their last names are both M.
Oh my goodness.
So
what do we do with that?
Yeah, how do you guys handle this?
we say Pat Mac or
All right, Pat Mac.
Tall Pat.
No, they're both the same, right?
We're not being rude if we start pointing.
No, we're not being rude.
Thank you very much for your report.
Thank
and
you.
Update. Thank you.
Perfect length, by the way.
Yeah.
Perfect.
All right. School committee member reports.
I don't, is Angie still here? Did they vote?
No,
They didn't. They just heard us out?
there's another proposal, but the person wasn't able to attend tonight, so they're gonna, attend the next meeting and vote in October.
Okay, so we have one more CPC meeting to attend. Angie and I went to Town Hall today with the Board of Selectmen, and we presented what we were asking for the CPC funds for the basketball courts, the tennis courts, the bleachers,
those 3 things.
Those 3 things, okay. It was those 3 items, and they were very receptive. They asked a couple of questions. We made sure that it was known that this is for our entire community, whether they're using our outside resources or our inside resources in the gym, like the basketball league that we have here. So I think it went very well, and hopefully at this next meeting, the selectmen will vote in our favor to actually put it as an official article, and we can vote on it at town meeting.
So are you saying there's another Board of Selectmen meeting?
Correct.
Okay.
With an official vote to become
an article, so
we can vote on it at town meeting. So we will need parents and community members, to support us at town meeting to make sure that vote goes through, if in fact the Board of Selectmen vote us into the articles.
And just to let the committee know that we, Angie and I presented at the CPC meeting, and they voted unanimously to support the school's bleachers and tennis and basketball courts updates. So
good.
This is like the next step.
Right, and just so the community knows, we are asking for $125,000 total. We're also using a grant to help pay for it as well. But just so you know, the CPC, I think that's what they call it, CPC account has $750,000 in it. So we're not asking for anything that's not there.
And just to give you a little background, we, when the gym was built at Ford Middle School, the bleachers that we currently have, which are 2 small sections, were donated. So they were used to begin with, and they're really not safe, to be honest. We have a piece of metal that continuously comes out. Kids have had stitches, they've gotten caught on it. We have to keep making sure that we bang that metal in. We should have seating for everybody in that gym, and we don't. People sit on the floor, stand up. There's not enough room to even watch a game. And then, of course, the basketball and tennis courts, we've got the cracking and the weeds coming up, and the nets are broken. And those are probably original and they get a lot of use. And I would say that the complaints that the school district gets the most of is for the basketball and tennis courts. When are you going to fix those, you know?
Yeah.
So we decided to ask CPC for, you know, money that we thought was sort of a high priority for the community. And also the bleachers are utilized not only by the school staff, but also basketball is a great example. They're in there multiple days a week playing games. We have middle school games where we have other middle schools come in and have games, and we have guests in our gym, and there's no place to sit. And like I said, those are wooden, old, outdated bleachers, and we just want to update. We want to do a whole row of bleachers and movable ones on the other wall, so that when we have school assemblies, we can get a lot of people in there. So,
Thank you, Jen.
Great, yeah, thank you for that update.
Yeah.
I just have one question. I know before summer, we had a really good discussion about safety in the school. And I know, John, you offered to sort of help with that discussion, which I appreciate. You're taking the lead on that. Just wanted to know when we would get an update, when we expect to have that update so we can report back.
Yeah, I will check with Colonel Gavigan. I did find another company that I can forward you some information. They did some work, and it's so much money per square foot of your building. That's the way they price it out, but they did the ORR school district, and it's slightly different than what we're getting, but I will check in with Colonel Gavigan as far as a timeline, and I will get back to you on that.
Okay, thank you.
Ron, did you get what you needed?
Excuse me, isn't the State Department of Education doing funding projects for safety? They've received $50 million, I believe.
Yeah, we just haven't seen anything yet. I mean, I'm hearing things.
Should we be barking up that tree as well? You know,
Absolutely. And again, just to review, Colonel Gavigan's report will give recommendations, not necessarily
see if they jive with
prices or...
I think they're basically developing some type of protocols now, you know, in the State Department of Education, and I don't know if it's with the state legislature or not, but, you know, in making funds and programs to boot, you know, for example, working with the, the local police doing background checks, they're going to compensate, you know, for that type of thing. So there'll be a lot of security issues that probably will supplement that report. So I say, please do some research before we go, in a different direction, and then we lose out on the funding that we could have gotten.
Right. And just to remind you, Colonel Gavigan through the Bristol County Sheriff's Office, this was a free service, and I know other schools are taking advantage of it as well. So I know he's spending quite a bit of time here in Acushnet, so hopefully he'll be wrapping up soon.
Yeah, I just wanted to provide, I know we had a really nice discussion at the meeting, I think prior to summer. I just want to be able to report back to the families.
Absolutely.
Where we're at with that. And that more information is coming.
Absolutely.
Great. Okay, any other reports by members? Okay. So there are some communications outlined in our agenda that are in your packet. We have no executive session this evening, so if there is no further comments or question, if I could have a motion to adjourn our meeting.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye, okay. And just noting that our next school committee meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, October 11th at 5:30 p.m. here at the library. Thank you, good night.